Hello and welcome to Weather and Its Surroundings. I'm Brian Ives. Today on Weather and Its Surroundings, we are going to be talking about storm chasing. Our guest today is Rich Hamel. Rich is an air quality meteorologist and also a storm chaser and has chased storms all across the country. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Alrighty, let's dive right into our questions,
Okay.
starting right off. For people that don't know, what is a storm chaser?
Well, a storm chaser is different things to different people. That's not an easy answer, but for me, a storm chaser is a person who just is really interested in seeing the power and the beauty of nature and all those processes happening, in person, and goes out of their way to watch and see what happens.
Okay. People often confuse storm spotters and storm chasers. Can you tell our audience what the difference between these two are?
Sure. A spotter is somebody who hopefully has been trained by the National Weather Service and is out there reporting in what they see so that the local National Weather Service office can make decisions about issuing warnings or watches based on a number of spotters in different locations and warn the public.
Okay. How often are you actually chasing storms?
Well, I am out on the plains, Central
Right.
Plains, chasing storms for a couple weeks a year and also helping forecasting a little bit more than that. And locally, I'll go out and chase, 3 or 4 times a year, depending on when the situation calls for it.
Okay. So obviously, I think one thing most people would know is what is the most dangerous part about storm chasing and why?
Well, a lot of people immediately think, okay, tornado must be the most dangerous thing. If you're chasing and you know what you're doing, and the people I chase with, we're all degreed meteorologists, we have a pretty good understanding of what's happening, you're not going to be hit by a tornado because you're positioning yourself in such a way that you can get out. We always have an escape road. But the most dangerous thing for us is, in order to see a tornado, you want to be in what's called the inflow notch of the storm. So if you can imagine on radar, the storm looks like a Pac-Man from above. And in here is going to be the tornado. So you need to be here to see it.
Right.
And it's coming towards you.
Right.
So we eventually are going to try to escape this way, but my thumb here is what's called the rear flank downdraft, and that's precipitation getting whipped around the backside of the storm, sometimes at 100 miles an hour if it's a really violent storm. And that can include tennis ball-sized hailstones, debris, bad visibility. So driving and trying to get out of that can be a real problem.
Wow. When you or someone goes out storm chasing, does that person go alone or with a team, and why?
There's a big combination or variety of people who go out. The majority of people, I think, go in groups just to share the experience. Also, to share the driving. We do an incredible amount of driving when we're out there, and that's something that people don't really think about. I think I figured out that we've averaged well over 500 miles a day driving when I'm out. But also, it's safer that way.
Right.
But there are some people who like to go experience the storm and just have it be them in nature.
Yeah. Okay. What are the best vehicles for storm chasing and why?
Well, four-wheel drive vehicles, just because, this is the severest of severe weather driving a lot of the times. Out on the plains, there are a lot of places where the roads that you need to take to get into position on a storm are not paved. A lot of times they're just farm county roads that are dirt. They get very muddy and very slick when they're wet, and so a four-wheel drive vehicle is great. One with enough room to carry equipment around. You definitely want kind of a rugged vehicle.
Okay. What tools do you bring along and use while storm chasing?
Well, we use a few different things. We have weather radio. We have obviously inter-vehicle communication. We use laptops with various different software. Our favorite is a software package called GR Level X, which is great for showing you really well-refined radar images where you are on the storm. Anything that anybody on the spotter network has posted pops right up there, so you can see, there's say a wall cloud reported on this storm or a funnel on this storm. That's a big tool we have. That, however, is dependent on the internet. So we have another tool called Mobile Threat Net, which is a similar product, not as well refined, but it uses satellite radio, so you never lose connectivity.
Oh, wow, okay. What is the biggest tornado you have seen?
Biggest size-wise?
Sure.
Well, probably the Bowdle, South Dakota tornado that we saw on May 22nd, 2010, exactly a year to the day before the Joplin tornado. And that one at times was closing in on half a mile wide.
Oh, how do storm chasers, just by looking at a storm, really be able to figure out whether it's severe or not?
Well, you can't per se say, okay, this is a severe storm in terms of what the definition of a severe thunderstorm is. But we can tell, for example, if it gets that greenish glow, that there's hail suspended in the front part of the storm. You can witness the air being sucked into the storm. Is it forming a tail cloud or an inflow band, and how fast is it moving into the storm? That gives you some information. Okay. Can you see it rotating visibly? That sort of thing.
Alrighty. Experts are saying that they believe a super tornado is possible. First off, what is a super tornado, and do you think one is possible?
I'm not sure what the definition of a super tornado is so I don't know what to say there, because I don't really know what exactly they're talking about.
Okay then. What for our viewers that don't know, what is I think it's pronounced Fujita scale that they use for scaling tornadoes?
The Fujita scale, and now what they have is the enhanced Fujita scale, which was something that just really was released in the last maybe 3 or 4 years. The Fujita scale is a way to measure the intensity of a tornado based on the damage that it does. And it's given and also the wind rating, which is determined by the damage. But one of the things that people think based on watching the TV shows or the movies is you can look at a tornado and go, oh, it's a EF5 or it's an EF2. And you really can't, because it's based on an after-the-fact damage assessment where they look for certain things that indicate a certain wind speed, and whatever range that speed falls into is the enhanced Fujita rating for that tornado.
Alrighty. So what is a supercell?
A supercell is a long-lasting rotating thunderstorm, which is something we see very rarely in New England here, once in a while, and but is what is common out in the Central Plains during the summer months, early summer months, and that's what we look for to chase. And really, what makes it what it is the high-speed wind aloft. When you have a thunderstorm, it comes up and you have your updraft, and as it gets up, the air cools and eventually condenses into rain. And normally here, right, it gets up, it gets heavy, and then it rains right back down through that updraft, eventually killing it. So our thunderstorms don't last very long, or there are multiple cells. Out there, the wind blows that precipitation way downstream, so you have an area way out in front of the storm where the rain and hail is coming down, and an updraft area where there's usually no rain at all. And as long as that precip gets blown away from the updraft can just keep cycling for hours at times.
Alrighty. Can you explain to our viewers what a microburst is?
A microburst is caused by a collapsing thunderstorm cell, and it's just you have all this precipitation or hail or whatever suspended at high levels, and then the updraft just dies and it just falls down and hits like a bomb. And when it hits, wherever it is, obviously it can't go into the ground, so it blasts outward in every direction. And if you look at a microburst damage from the air, you'll almost be able to pick a central point, and it all kind of explodes outward like a bomb.
Alrighty. Let's talk about safety. A lot of people, obviously, we've seen a lot of tornadoes here. Well, not a lot of tornado warnings recently, especially in the New England area, have been issued. But a lot of people always tend to get the watches and warnings confused. If a tornado warning is issued, what are good safety precautions to take during a tornado warning?
An actual warning. Well, a warning means that there is an active storm in your county or approaching your county that they've either detected rotation by radar, such that it could produce a tornado at any time. Someone's reported a funnel, or there's an actual tornado spotted in progress. So if that's the case, you want to get down in your basement or certainly indoors. You want to listen to your weather radio or TV, and just listen and read or hear the warning, and it will tell you, it's going to be at this town at this time, and then this town, then this town, and just be sure that when it's getting towards your town, you take shelter.
Obviously, tornadoes can hit at any moment. If you're outside, what should you do?
Well, if you were outside and you were you had a tornado bearing down on you, you want to get as low to the ground as you can in a ditch or something where you're as sheltered from the wind as possible so that it's not going to pick you up. I mean, that's really a last resort situation. You should really try to get inside if you can.
Alrighty. What power does the emergency management offices have over storm chasers? Do you feel that they help or get in the way?
Oh, that's a great question, and it's really interesting because it's changed in the 12 years now I've been chasing. It used to be that they were very appreciative of any help we could give. A lot of times we had radar and gear in our vehicles that they didn't, so we could tell them, oh, this is going on, that's going on. With the advent of the reality shows on the Discovery Channel, et cetera, now you have more and more people out there, and there are traffic jams, the cell phone network gets clogged up, and you have more people who act like they're in a reality show as if nothing bad could happen to them. So they drive like crazy, they do all kinds of things. So there's been a lot of more pushback in the last couple of years, and especially this year, where people, state police or whoever are telling people to move along, get away from the storms. We had both experiences this year when I was out there. We were on a nighttime tornado in La Crosse, Kansas, and they were, like, nope, can't stop here, get out of the way.
Wow.
We were then up in a different Smith County, Kansas, a couple of days later, and the county sheriff pulled up right alongside us, and I probably had a half-hour conversation with the guy while we watched this big hailstorm about 10 miles to our west going by, and he was, gave us his cell phone number and said, if you see anything, please give me a call.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the history of storm chasing. Is there a history to storm chasing?
Yes, certainly, and it's probably started, I guess, officially as in what we would call storm chasing today in the 70s, some of the early guys, and back then people didn't know a whole lot about tornado formation, and you got your data pretty much by what you saw, or if you could somehow get to a National Weather Service office. With the advent of not only television, but especially the movie Twister came out, in which I believe was '96. Suddenly now it became more of a, this is a curiosity. More people started doing it, and even more so now with the reality shows. Now you've got tons and tons of people doing it. And as time has gone on, the technology's gotten better and better, and honestly, it's gotten easier to do, and I think that's a draw for more people as well.
You mentioned the movie Twister. Do you, there were some people that say they don't believe that it's real, some people say, it is real. What do you think?
Well, the funny thing is, every one of us chasing can probably quote it line for line. We've seen it a million times, And I mean, the science isn't great in the movie. A lot of the places they use the buzzwords that we use, but not really at times where they would really happen. So the science isn't great, but it's a fun movie, and you hope, we refer to things as a Twister experience, which is usually, if you get too close, you may have had a Twister experience.
Alrighty. Has there been an increase in of tornadoes over time? And a lot of people, when they think of all of this crazy severe weather, they think global warming, climate change, or what else could it be?
Yeah, I don't think there's been per se an increase of tornadoes. I think with the awareness, the TV shows, and the technology, we say now no tornado goes unseen. There's so many people out spotting and just chasing with their smartphones where they can text and have a picture up on Facebook or something 5 minutes later, that there's just so many more tornado reports because there are so many more people out there to see them.
Amazing. I always find it amazing with how technology just seems to be evaporating every single day with more and more technology, which leads right into our next question.
Oh, all right.
How is the 21st technology changing either forecasting or storm chasing? We actually did a show on weather forecasting technology back a little while back. Okay. And I guess I'm looking for more for storm chasing. What has technology changed?
Yeah, well, there were when I first started, a lot of the times the internet or the cell network out in the plains was very sparse. There were a lot of places you couldn't get any. And the only way we would get any internet data is we would stop at the public library in whatever town we happened to pass through, use their internet for a few minutes, and then take off. Then it got to be all the hotels had wireless, but nowhere else did, so we would park next to some hotel for a bit, sneak on their internet, get some data, and then be on our way. Now it's to the point where there's pretty good cell coverage, and everybody's got cell phones, and everyone's got laptops and technology. So it's just you know, as soon as a storm fires, you pretty much know right where it is, and you keep an eye on it for a few radar scans and go, yep, that's our target storm. Let's go get it.
Wow. So. Recently on the news, this was something I think recently on ABC World News, that they've been talking about all the severe weather, which has been an increase, especially this summer, but not. They also are starting to talk about lightning chases. Now, it might just be me. I've never heard what exactly is a lightning chaser. What does that exactly mean?
Well, you know, people chase storms for a lot of different reasons, and you know, as you know, I work as a guide with a tour company, and the people who come out with us, they want to see all different things. Some people love lightning. Some people want to know every detail of the science. Some people don't want to know anything about the science. They just want to see the storms. Some people are photographers who want nature shots. And there are, you know, people, sometimes we call them lightning bugs, who are just really interested in lightning, and they go out, not usually during the time of season I would be out there. They are down in Arizona right now, actually, in the monsoon, where you get these persistent, you know, every day you get these storms that form in the mountains around places like Tucson, and they're really highly electrified, and they just go out there to film lightning and watch it.
Incredible. I guess, like, let's talk about what is the easiest thing to storm chasing?
The easiest thing, well, you know, again, the technology is making things easier and easier. I think it's easier to figure out where you have to be on a large scale these days. You know, another thing when we were talking about technology we didn't touch on is the improvement in weather models, and especially the short-term weather models in predicting, you know, where storms are going to be. We used a model this year, the new version of the rapid refresh, high-resolution rapid refresh model, and it even gives you composite projected radar, like what's the radar probably going to look like 13 hours from now. And you can look at it with all your other data, and oh, it blows up a big storm 250 miles west of here. Okay, let's go. Well, we'll be there well before it starts. And this year we found it to be really accurate, actually.
Wow. All right, so if it's not the easiest, then what is the hardest thing to storm chasing?
The hardest thing is being in the exact right place to see a tornado. You can do everything right and be right on the correct storm, and you know, the storm is perfect to produce a tornado, and then it doesn't, or it starts raining through the updraft, or whatever, and you can't see it on. But you know, just look at there's so many websites now, places where you can you know, you can look at the spotter net and kind of see what people are doing. There's a website called twisterdata.com, which is a radar and model site made really for storm chasers, so you know, something we all use a lot. There's a lot of different online resources where you can read about, you know, what's a supercell thunderstorm and how do they work and all those kinds of things, and just go out and start watching.
Well, right on that topic of resources, what are some great websites for anyone interested in storm chasing to go online, look at more about information about it? What are great websites?
Yeah, well, as we said, Twister Data is a good one. Stormtrack.org is you know, that was back in the 80s was the hard copy newspaper for storm chasers, newsletter for storm chasers. Now it's a forum online that, you know, you don't have to be anybody to get on it.
Wow.
You might have to be accepted in order to be able to post, but you can always follow along, and all the storm chasers, if you've watched the TV shows that you've heard of, are on there. And you know, there's that. Obviously, the National Weather Service sites. A lot of times, if there's a big, say, tornado event, the National Weather Service office around that area will end up with a dedicated web page showing you damage path and radar and all kinds of things from that storm, and helps you understand what exactly happened better, so you know what to look for next time.
Alrighty, I guess let's talk about what got you interested in storm chasing. Why did you want to get into this whole field?
Sure. Well, I was originally in high tech. I have a undergrad in computer science and was in high tech for like 10 years. Always interested in weather, but never really pursued it. And it just so happened that I was working on projects out in the Midwest, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, and started seeing a couple of these big supercell thunderstorms. And I remember looking around at the internet and seeing, wow, they have tours for storm chasing, and so I was like, all right, so I went on my first one, and it was a 10-day tour, and we really didn't see much. Actually, we only saw 2 good storms, but at that point, the science fascinated me, and all of the things that went into making a good forecast. So I decided, well, I have to get this into my career. So I went back to school, got my master's, and ended up switching careers. And also on the side, I now have been a forecaster and guide for that same storm chasing company for 10 years now.
Wow.
So.
Is it easier to chase storms during the day, at night? What's a storm chaser's preference?
Oh, it's much easier during the day. During the night, it's very scary. And actually, the best tornado that I saw this year when I was out was also the longest duration tornado I've seen, which was 54 minutes long. Of that, I would say 40 minutes was after dark. And the only time you could see it was when lightning flashed.
Wow.
Otherwise, we were close enough that you could actually hear it. We were probably not more than half a mile from it. But it was very spooky to have, flash and, whoa, there's this big tornado, and okay, now you can't hear anything. Meanwhile, the tornado sirens are going off in town. When they would cycle down, you could just hear the whoosh sound of the tornado right off to our north. And yeah, at night, you generally don't go out of your way to chase at night.
Wow.
It's very unusual that you get a situation like we did where it was a very visible tornado on a storm that was highly electrified, so there's a lot of lightning. And,
we were talking before the show about you were telling me that you were in Joplin, Missouri when those crazy tornadoes hit down there. What was that experience like?
That was the one time I actually questioned whether I would ever chase again. After that, we were right in town. We weren't actively chasing when the tornado happened. We'd been chasing all day in southeastern Kansas, and the storms were getting more intense. Because what had happened was one big hailstorm had collapsed and blown out this big layer of cold air, which is spinning.
Right.
And then each additional storm, as it came up from the southwest, would hit this hit the high vorticity air and just go zoom, spinning off, get tornado warned for a few minutes, and then it would get in the cold air and die. So we were thinking, okay, we have to get into the town of Joplin, refuel because we hadn't fueled up for a while, and then get south because you need to be south of the storms generally to see them well. And we went into town right on, I think it's Rangeway Drive or Skyway Drive, the street where all the businesses on, that all were destroyed. And we stopped at this gas station, and 3 fortunate things happened. First of all, they refused us service. They had closed down the pumps and wouldn't let anybody into the storm because we had about 20 people.
Right.
And a restroom break at one of those takes half an hour. And they were like, nope, we have a tornado warning, we can't let you in. So we're like, all right, mount back up. And as we did that, the tour director of my company, of the company I work for, a guy named Roger Hill, who's a very well-known storm chaser, looked at the velocity radar, not the normal radar you see on TV, but the velocity, and realized there's a tornado 3 miles from here, west of us. We need to get out right now. So we start driving south, and it was like traffic on Route 9 here, wall to wall, Sunday afternoon, and we're crawling south, trying to get to Interstate 44, and one light cycle we'd go 100 yards, stop for 3 minutes, and people are starting to panic. Our guests are screaming out the window to people who are just walking up and down the street, oblivious to the fact that it's pitch black off to the west, and we start seeing power flash, where buildings are starting to get hit. And pretty soon we realize, well, we're not going to get clear of this, so we better think about shelter. So one of the guides suggested, the Home Depot right over there. And we said, yep, okay, Home Depot, let's go. And then decided, no, we can get south. Well, it turns out that Home Depot was destroyed with a number of fatalities in it, as it turned out. And the thing that really saved us was the power went out. Eventually, there were enough transformers and things damaged. The power went out in the town. The light cycles went down, and we just shot down the road, got on the highway, and ran. But the scariest single moment of my storm chasing career was getting on the on-ramp of Interstate 44 when, to get east, you had to go up this ramp which turned right into the path of the tornado, and turning and just seeing this black. You couldn't see the tornado itself because it was wrapped in rain, but just utter blackness, and looking up and seeing roofing and pieces of debris flying around in the air around us as we got around and took off. That was a scary moment. Scariest moment I've had by far storm chasing.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we are already out of time for today. I want to thank my guest, Rich Hamel, for joining me today. I also want to thank everyone who helped out behind the scenes today. Thank you, Richard Berman, Melinda Gordon, Melissa Frank, Sheila Vernick, Michael Crossan-Sills, and New TV. For more information on today's program, please visit our weather blog at weatherinitssurroundings.blogspot.com. On the blog, you'll be able to find a weekly forecast, severe weather alerts, and more information about each of our shows. We also invite you to connect with us on Facebook by liking the Weather in Its Surroundings page. We are also now on Twitter. Follow us at Newton MA Weather, and we will follow you if you follow us. If you missed any part of this episode or would like to see it again in its entirety, you can watch full episodes of the show and previous episodes online at newtv.org. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.